This Amateur Radio Roundtable is brought to you in part by Icom America. Hey guys, we're back with you. It's Tuesday, October 31st. This is Amateur Radio Roundtable. I'm Tom Medlin, W5KUB. Would like to welcome everybody that's joining us tonight, and especially if you're listening on a shortwave station WBCQ on 5130 kilohertz. We invite you, if you can get on the internet, to join the show and watch the show tonight. You can go to w5kub.com, w5kub.com, and you can watch the show, and you can check in the chat room and be part of the show. Also, if you will, and for new hams in the chat room, if you will, at the top of our page, the w5kub.com page, there's a menu up there. Please click on Facebook, join the Facebook group. We're getting close to 7,000 members down our webcast Facebook group, and it's just a great place to see what's coming on the show and who's coming on next and where we've been and what we're doing, and just post good ham radio items in that Facebook group. It's Halloween tonight, so Kathy may get interrupted here. The show will go on if she has to go give. It's going to go on there. So let's jump in to see what we got here. Let's see. Let me find the right button here, and let me go to Katie. Hey, Katie, how you doing?
Hey, happy Halloween!
Man, I don't know if you look like Halloween there or Mardi Gras or something, but you look kind of. I don't know.
I'm a parrot head tonight.
Kathy said it was cute, you know.
Well, you know, this is, you know, Dwayne and I are parrot heads. We like to go to Jimmy Buffett concerts. So, and usually there's a party when we're down in Las Vegas at the concert, and this is just a little bit of the get-up that I wear. I mean, I've got my beads with flip-flops and palm trees on them, my really cool sunglasses, and the best part of all is my parrot hat. Yeah. Which actually has been signed by some of the coral reefers. Nadira Shakur and Michael Etley and Doyle actually signed these when we went to a concert in Kansas City. So,
well, that's so cool.
I just thought it'd be a little fun to dress up tonight.
That's so cool. And I love the glasses. The glasses just, you know, they just set the whole thing off right there.
They have a lot of fun details on them. So.
All right. Well, hey, let me check in and see what Martin's doing. Last I checked with Martin, he was eating a pizza or something. Martin, how you doing tonight?
Oh, I'm doing just great, Tom, and I have finished eating my pizza, and I'm pretty full, and I'm glad to be here and see Katie and Rich, and I'm glad that I made it through all the kids in the neighborhood that were out there trying to get Halloween candy.
Well, guys, let me tell you, Martin just confessed a minute ago. He said they ran out of candy early tonight. And I said, Martin, you should have bought more than a $1.98 package of candy.
Next time.
So, you know, you're going to have to buy more candy. I tell you, we've got a great big bag of candy. And I bet you, what do you think, Kathy? We'll use maybe a third of it. We haven't had a lot of kids.
I just gave the last kids a whole bunch.
Oh, you know, hey, we got lucky kids. They come and Kathy gives them like 25 pieces of candy. She just gave them a whole bunch of it out.
Either that or us eat it.
Yeah. All right. So, okay. Well, good, Martin. I'm glad you're with us tonight. I'm going to jump back up here with Katie, and we're going to let Katie come in here and tell us what she's got going tonight. I think she's got a guest in here tonight, and we're going to hear what she's got.
Is this too distracting, Rich, or are we okay, you think, tonight?
I'm fine.
Well, it's that time of the month. It's the end of the month, so that means it's time to talk to our friend Rich, W2VU from CQ Magazine, find out what's coming out in this upcoming issue, and of course his ever-present assistant, Dougal the Black Cat. So welcome, Rich. Dougal. How are you? Oh, there he is.
How are you?
There's Dougal. Oh, what happened? Did we see?
Happy Halloween. You saw a little bit of nippiness from Mr. Dougal here, which is unusual for him.
Oh man!
Probably had too much candy. I don't know.
Well, we've only had.
I don't think he likes that,
I don't know
man.
about you guys. Oh, look at him getting. Last week it was Peekaboo who was upstaging me behind, so tonight it's Dougal. So So what's going on in this upcoming issue that you can tell us about and get our appetites whetted?
Our calendars are,
Oh,
and they're already going out to anybody who pre-ordered them. So we got all sorts of great pictures as usual of stations all over the world. And one of my favorites, well, two. One is an antenna's eye view from Lithuania, of a
cool.
station there. And another one, this is from Contest Station in Italy, the lawn service that's guaranteed to be QRM free. Where did it go here? Let's see. Now I can't find it, of course. Let's see. Come on.
From Italy, you said?
Oh, well, from Italy, yeah.
Oh, nice.
So we got pictures from all over the world here. Germany, Italy, and of course all over the United States as well.
Are those still available, Rich, or were they all gone on? They were all pre-order, or you can still
there's
get them?
plenty available. There's,
great.
Oh yeah, and so anybody who wants them can just get on our website and order them.
Excellent.
And it's a 15-month calendar, so it'll carry you into March of 2019.
Great. I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, it's interesting when you start putting the calendar together and how far advanced you're going into 2019, planning out, looking for, meteor showers and things like that.
Right.
It's makes you feel older. Okay, November CQ, great issue as usual coming up. Our cover story is going to be on, speaking of around the world, the E31 Alpha de-expedition to Eritrea. And that's a very hard to get to and operate from place. So that was it's a cool story. But before we get to that in the issue, we, of course, celebrate the introduction of our two new ham bands on the low frequency and medium frequency ranges, 630 and 2200 meters, with some guidance on what you can do where, and help people get ready to get on those bands and do what they need to do. You have to do advance notice to the Utilities Technology Council to make sure you're not within a kilometer of a power distribution line that's using PLC, or power line communications. A lot of people got their OK letters pretty quickly and got on the air very quickly, and there's already an amazing DX being worked on there from Australia up to the northwestern US and Canada. So it's really the bands are truly amazing. We're going to
Rich, let me show you, Rich. Here's my letter that I got back from them right here. This is what you'll get. Now, if you don't get anything back, you're still approved. They've got 30 days to respond to you.
That's right, unless you get a letter saying, no, you can't. And there have been a few of those around as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
So
then the article will outline the logistics and what's involved with operating that new band?
Well,
So
the article will be about what's available, and how to go about getting authority to operate on it. We have a quarterly column that we started last year on getting on the band and operating and what you can do. And so that's going to be an ongoing feature, is this column. Plus, we've got a couple of other feature articles from time to time on different things with these bands. Like in October, we had an article on using a 5-gallon bucket from Home Depot to wind a variometer.
Oh, yeah.
So there's all sorts of good articles coming out there, and we'll be on top of it pretty much regularly. It's a great new opportunity for hams to once again be on the cutting edge of experimentation and discovering what can be done on different bands. Back in the issue, we've got the results of the CW weekend of the 2017 CQ Worldwide WPX contest. of course, last weekend was the single sideband weekend of the CQ
Right.
World DX contest, and hope people got on there. We got some surprises on 15 meters. Nobody expected it to be open, and it was wide open from what I hear.
Yeah, I
So,
saw a lot of people posting on that, so it'll be fun to see all of the final results of that. But I saw lots of notes on Facebook with everybody posting their scores and talking about how great the bands actually were. You know, surprisingly, all those openings and really having a great contest weekend.
yep, absolutely. Propagation continues to be as much art as science.
Right.
And, so it's always fun to see what you can predict and what is going to happen, whether or not you predict it.
Right.
Also, among our features, we've got a historical feature on some super rare DX from the Indian subcontinent back in the early days of ham radio. And we've got, let's see, among our columns, Joe Eisenberg, who I know is out there listening someplace, writes about, "Am I going to the dark side?" So you'll have to read the column or talk to
Yeah.
Joe to find out what it is that he's worried about. But he could be going over to the dark side.
Maybe he's making a kit that's not QRP.
You may have something there.
Oh.
Staying up on world events, Listening Post, our shortwave listening column this month, helps you tune in North Korea to see what they have to say about the situation that is threatening to bubble over there. In our CQ Worldwide column, it's called A Month for Acronyms. Yota, Sarl, Nayar, Narau, and Bufra. You have to read it to figure those out.
Just say that 3 times fast.
Wayne Yoshida Cage, 6WZ, in his Ham Notebook column, writes about makers as fixers and money savers. And of course, we hams are the original makers. And in Digital Connection, we have part 2 of getting started in DMR, digital mobile radio. And we've also got a bit of contesting that doesn't really get the attention that other contests do. And this is the U.S. Championships for Amateur Radio Direction Finding, or fox hunting. And it's definitely a competitive radio sport.
Right.
And of course, in emergency communications, we cover the amateur radio response to the various hurricanes this year. The November issue, the deadline for that was before Maria. So we talked mostly about Irma and Jose and at that point, but December issue, we'll have a full wrap up on the ham radio response to Maria. And that's pretty much what we got coming up for the November issue, which that should be, the digital edition should be online tomorrow.
Right.
And print edition as soon as we can get it out to people.
Rich, you were talking about the band openings were happened during the contest. You know, I've noticed that we have a lot of dead bands, but when there's a contest, it seems like they really liven up. So I think sometimes that the bands just aren't used now, some of these bands, like 10 meters and others.
Well, you know, it's been said that the CQ Worldwide in particular makes its own propagation.
Yeah.
And I think there's something to that.
Yeah, well, that might be.
There's just so much RF going up into the ionosphere that it may actually tickle some of those electrons into being a little more active and creating band openings where there might not have been before.
Well, I hadn't thought about that. Somebody
the other
needs to
part
do
of that is that there's activity on the bands all the time during the contest weekends, and there are always band openings that you never know about because nobody's there to take advantage of them. You know, what if you gave a band opening and nobody came? That happens pretty frequently. But during a contest weekend, you get to take advantage of every band opening that there is. So it's a combination, I think. But
well,
yes, they do make their own propagation.
I will say this. I was on 20 meters, I guess, night before last, and there almost wasn't a signal on there. And I found one little signal in there, and it was Antarctica, KC4 AAA, and I talked to him. So the band was open to the South Pole, and I saw someone else that worked. That was his last contact in the contest this weekend. So the guys, their signals are out there. You just got to go find them.
Absolutely.
That's pretty cool. Well, awesome. Well, Rich, as always, we know that. So everybody who's got if you get a digital subscription, you're going to get CQ in your inbox tomorrow.
Yep.
And then and otherwise they'll be in the mail. And
Yep.
if you don't have a subscription, it's that time of the year. You might want to think about giving one as a gift to someone. I just did that really recently, and it was very easy. I just called up the office and said I wanted to get a subscription for a friend, and the office took care of it. And I got a text a little while later saying, "Oh, wow, thank you." And so my friend got their subscription information right away. So that's a great idea for any.
Uh-oh. Katie,
You
you froze. Well, Katie, I haven't been notified yet that that's coming.
Oh, Tom, yours, you'll see yours soon.
But I do have a subscription to CQ Magazine.
Yeah. And then, of course, they can go online, and your website is
www.cq-amateur-radio.com.
excellent. Well, thanks again, Rich, and we'll look forward to seeing you at the end of next month to talk about our last month of the year's issue and what's coming.
Excellent. I'm looking forward to it. It's a great issue. We just put it to bed. It's our technology special, and it's all sorts of cool stuff.
Excellent. Well,
Happy
thank you
Halloween.
again. Happy Halloween.
All right. 73.
73.
All right. So, okay, that was a good good segment there about, I get my CQ magazine, I look through it, and there's just some great articles in there. I'm surprised every month on a lot of neat things going on, and can't wait for the next one. So, Katie, just real quick here, you I don't know if you got something else to show us, hadn't you? Tell us what you've been up to.
Yeah, you bet. I thought I would just share a few photos. This past weekend, I was down in Denver. I went to the Ham Radio Outlet for Fall Fest. It was the first time we've had an event down in that store, and it was something that Clayton, K3CRS, our store manager, put together with me. I was going to go down there with Dwayne for a meeting, and I thought, hey, I wonder if we might be able to pull something off. And now I have a noisy cat in the shack. So Clayton was able to get some local clubs and some vendors in. And so for this past Friday and Saturday, we had a lot of activity happening in the store. It was a lot of fun. So I just thought I'd share a couple of quick photos just to highlight the weekend for you. And and here we go. Share screens. Gives me a second. Let me pick the right one. And start. Okay. And feel free to interrupt if you have anything along the way. I'll just give it a second. So,
Right.
Arriving at the store, one of the things, some of our states and cities, of course, have sales tax. So nice little note right on the front door, no city sales tax. And from a distance, of course, like all of our other stores, you can find us because of the big old tri-bander up top. But and they did a little reorganizing in there, and so there's lots of license manuals and other information as soon as you walk through the door. But as I mentioned, right at 10 o'clock, we had tons of people in. I'd made up these flyers that were sitting on the counter, and Clayton had them all over the store and had them ready to go. And of course, and look at that right there. There's some MFJs right behind the counter. And we had Steve Breitman from SDR Play there for the weekend. He was giving lots of overviews and showing people how it worked. So that was really very helpful segments. And I did a bunch of videos with that, and it was a lot of fun. And I did not get, Brent's asking if I went to the sci-fi convention. If I had known there was one, I might have gone to it. Right at the front of the store, we've got, as I mentioned, we've got our manuals. And then just behind you see some of the folks sitting there. That's the wall with the radios that you can get on and play and test out. And that's where we had put Steve to set up the SDR Play for demonstrations. This is the team. So anybody who's ever been to the Denver store, you got Kristen and Jim and John and Larry and Jim and Clayton and Mike. And so that was, and then there was a few other guys on the other day, but that was my group photo. And look, there's CQ Magazine on the front. So we carry those in our stores as well. And of course the QST issue. So we do have the magazines available for folks. It's a pretty small store, but it's chock full of stuff. Now, of course, it being Halloween, Clayton's and Kristen's youngest daughter, Chloe, was dressed up. And she's, 7 years old, and she wanted to be dressed up as Audrey Hepburn. So she was our little helper all weekend long, and she was just a load of fun. And of course I said, well, I have to get a selfie with you because you're dressed up and so fabulous today. So she obliged a photo with me, the little star that she was. And it was a lot of fun to have the young energy. Clayton's other daughter, who you'll see shortly, was also with us all weekend and was such a great helper. Next door to the store is actually an empty store space, and Clayton was able to work with the property owners to let us use that space for the weekend. So we had the Denver Radio Club, the Aries was set up there, the Parker Radio Association, Diane from Icom, Dominic from RT Systems, and Jeremiah, who was set up to do mesh networking demonstrations. So it really came in handy to have all of this extra space. It ended up being a place for people to hang out and visit. I had Dick, Kate, ZTT came up to do card checking, although I don't know if there was anybody who ever needed them. But this was, again, over in our radio area. We had Steve Brightman, who's sitting here in the middle, and he was giving a demonstration on how the SDR play works. And Tom, I think you have one of those, don't you? Didn't you pick up the RSP too somewhere along the way?
Yeah, I did. They sent me one, and we're going to have them on the show, but I've been waiting for them to get back with me to talk about it. But there it is, right there.
Oh, perfect. Yeah. Well, I talked to Steve, and I asked him if we might be able to do something, and he said yes. So now I've got him on the ringer, so we'll get him on here to show off. Because I never really understood too much about it, other than you could use it as a receiver, but it was really interesting to see all it does. And then on Saturday, we did a live video where he set it up as a pan adapter with a Kenwood, and it was really pretty interesting stuff. And it was very well received by the folks in the store and people watching. So that was kind of fun. So we really tried to make this weekend not only just a time for people to come in and go shopping, but educational and provide these forums. It actually was a pretty nice day out, so I popped outside quick to get a photo of, the antenna, because of course that's what I like to do, and was getting a little walking around the building. And so when you're kind of driving in, this just gives you an idea. It's in a nice little strip mall. I think that's the appropriate term with the antennas. And I was just showing off this little area here we set up in the parts of the month. And what will happen is Jim Pope, who is an educator by background, actually comes up with different books that he likes to highlight every month, and we call them Pope's Picks. And so this area that's normally full of different books is set up so that with a certain theme for education. So if you need a particular book in your ham shack, those are Pope's Picks for the month. So that was kind of fun to get a shot of what was happening there. Again, this is just a little quick shot of the store. There's Phil Parton from Kenwood was also with us. He donated a key for their 60th anniversary key. So you can see we had a nice crowd going here and lots of people visiting with each other. Since we had so many folks from all the different clubs, there was a lot of visiting and camaraderie. It was really nice. Just another quick shot, I think. And okay, so here's Jeremiah, N0KMO. He is the one that provided the mesh and ham radio the ham radio demonstration. Well, he also ended up winning the key, so that was really quite exciting. Well, then Diane from Icom donated $4,100 for those that attended the D-Star dinner the night before. Well, who ended up winning that was Jeremiah's wife, Samantha, N0SMY, and she was just so excited. I think she almost cried. She was so happy about that. Yeah. And they're both active hams, and that was a lot of fun to, have prizes given away and everyone happy campers. And I think, and here is Clayton's other daughter, and she was such a huge help and was constantly running around. She did all of our prize drawings, pulling out the tickets and announcing the winners. And like I said, it was really nice to have a lot of that young energy in the store with us, and it was a lot of fun, and everybody really enjoyed them. And just a quick goofy picture with Fred from the Denver Radio Club. They were celebrating their 100th anniversary, and I introduced them to a couple of new guys that came in. We're interested in finding a local club to get involved, and so I said, well, it just so happens that the Denver Radio Club is here, and they are recruiting some new folks, and they were very happy to do some talks with people, and that pretty much wraps it up. We stayed with our friend Jeff K0RM, who was our host for the weekend, and he and Dwayne went to a meeting for the Colorado Council of Clubs and did their stuff and hung out with a few other ham friends along the way, and it was a super fun weekend, and I really appreciate it. And to all the gang down in Denver, thank you so much for being such a good hosts, and it was a lot of fun, and I always enjoy going to visit the stores and getting to see people, and as opposed to, I mean, I love the big conventions, but when you have a smaller store event like this, it's a lot of fun because you have a little more time to visit with people.
Yeah, it looks like you had a great showing of people there and a good time. And I'm so glad you clarified the name of that building there as a strip shop.
I know that was, oh my goodness. There goes Katie goofing up something once again.
That's good. You did good there, Katie. Thank you.
It must have been the parrot on my head. It just threw off my brain.
Yeah, well, the parrot looks nice, and just everything here is just really cool. So thanks. I thought about dressing up for tonight, but I didn't make it. So maybe next year.
I think you should next year. That'd be a lot of fun.
Well, Katie, thanks. Thanks, Katie. Stick around if you want to and jump in with Martin and me at any time if you want to. If you need to leave, just leave, but you can stay on there.
All right.
All right. Just don't make any noises or anything.
No, I will be quiet.
All right.
I'm going to say 73 because I got to take care of a couple of things upstairs. Okay. And so have a great one. I'll keep watching and stay on the chat room, but I'll log off the show. So I'll say 73, everybody.
Sounds good. Okay, Katie, thank you very much for being on there with us. And let me see. I'm going to hang you up then. There we go. Great. There we go. Okay, Katie, thanks so much. Let's take about a 1-minute break. We'll be right back in about 1 minute, everybody. Heard it, worked it, logged it. It's time to get the transceiver that's best suited for your lifestyle. Icom offers a variety of high-performance and innovative products. See how you can make the most out of the contest season with one of these transceivers. Ideal for the ham on the go, the IC7300 is a high-performance HF transceiver with a compact design. Don't miss a weak signal with the combination of the waterfall function and a real-time spectrum scope. It has RF direct sampling, 15 discrete bandpass filters, a large 4.3-inch color touchscreen, real-time spectrum scope, and an SD memory card slot. The IC7851 will give you the competitive edge you've been looking for. Raise the bar and hear what others can't hear with the HF 50 MHz transceiver. It has reciprocal mixing dynamic range, a crystal clear local oscillator design, a spectrum scope, dual receivers, and a digital voice recorder. Can't wait for the IC7610? The IC7600 is still available and is at a great price. Following in the footsteps of Icom's flagship radio, the IC7600 has an intuitive operation and the latest DSP technologies. It comes with a digital IF filter, dual DSP, 5.8-inch ultra-wide TFT display, and a high-resolution real-time spectrum scope. Visit www.icomamerica.com/amateur for more information on Icom radios. All right, guys, we're back and having a good time tonight already. This is Halloween, October 31st. Again, welcome to anybody out there listening on a shortwave. Hey, send us a signal report. If you're listening on a shortwave, or if you're a ham and you're tuned in on 5130, send me a signal report. I'd like to know where you're hearing this from. Send that to Tom at w5kub.com. Tom at w5kub.com. And if you're new joining in the chat room, click on Facebook at the top menu and join our Facebook group. We'd really appreciate that. And hey, we're back with our friend Mr. MFJ himself, Martin Jew, and Martin's going to talk some about antennas and how to make a wire radiate and things like that. Now let me tell you how this segment came around. You know, we're building this cobweb. Walter and I are building the cobweb, and we kind of took bits and pieces from different people, and Some of the elements on it were perfect. The other elements were just terrible. So I think what Martin is going to tell us here is help us understand how to make a piece of wire like one of those elements resonant and make it radiate. So we decided to go into this segment first, and then we can talk afterwards a little about the cobweb, and we'll open the phone lines up too. When Martin gets through here, we'll open the phone lines up too. So, Martin, well, a lot of people don't understand reactance in an antenna. They probably don't even think about it. I know most of your antenna analyzers years ago didn't have reactance. I mean, and especially your SWR bridges were just barred and reflected power. So tell us why it's important, and I want to know how to make an antenna resonant.
Okay, well, first I just want to say that I had really enjoyed Katie's and Richard's segments. They were very, very nice, and just happy to be here tonight. There were so many kids in our neighborhood, and we ran out of candy early for the Halloween tonight. But I'm ready to talk about how that just a simple piece of wire, very short piece, 1 feet, 10 foot, 100 foot, 1,000-foot piece of wire, or any kind of structure can radiate any power that you put into it. In fact, a 10-foot piece of wire can radiate as much power, or nearly as much power, as a 100-foot piece of wire.
Martin, that's what I was going to ask you, and I was going to throw you off here, and I was going to say, hey, is it better to have a 1,000-foot long antenna or a 10-foot antenna? Are you telling me both of them might work about the same?
Well, what I'm saying is, if you put power into it, it's going to radiate it out. Now, the difference is the kind of lobes, the kind of pattern that you have. Right. But whatever you put in is going to go out as radio waves. So a 1-foot piece of wire can radiate the same power as a 10-foot piece of wire, or a 100-foot piece of wire, or a 1,000-foot piece of wire. And like I said, the problem is getting that power into it.
And I guess that's like we were talking with Walter. He's a pilot. He's operated HF from the airplane, and that HF antenna on an airplane is probably only a couple feet long.
Well, if you think about it, let's say you put some power into something. What's going to happen to it? It's going to go somewhere, or it's going to end up as heat.
True.
And in the case of an antenna, it's just going to go somewhere. But let's start off and think about and let's talk about something that we know about, 40 meters, 7 megahertz, something in that frequency range. Let's take a piece of wire, a wire that may be just a little bit too long for 40 meters. Let's take a piece of wire, say 70 feet long, okay? And then let's put it up in the air, and what I'm going to call free space. And what I mean by that is nothing is around it. It's just a piece of wire out there. And then in the middle of the wire, we're going to put a little antenna analyzer, the MFJ259 or MFJ269. And what we're going to look at is the impedance of that antenna right in the middle. Now, you take a piece of wire and you go right in the middle of it, we call that a dipole. It's a dipole antenna. And we're going to look at it, and we're going to see what the resistance is and what the reactance is. And that's how you model an antenna. That's how you describe an antenna when you look at where you feed it at, is the resistance that you see and the reactance. Now, that reactance can be capacitance or it can be inductance. If we take a wire about 70 feet long at 7 megahertz, then you get a resistive part. That's somewhere between, 75, 85 ohm in resistance. Then you get some reactance. Now, because it's longer than the half wave of 40 meters, it's going to show a positive reactance. In other words, it's going to look inductive. Okay, let's cut a little bit off of that. So instead of 70 feet, let's cut a half a foot off on each side and look at the resistance and the reactance. Well, that inductive reactance is going to reduce, okay? And the resistance is going to change a little bit too, but not as much as the reactance. Let's cut some more off of it and you look at the reactance. Now, we're talking about taking your antenna analyzer, MFJ 259 or 269 or whatever one that you have, and you look at the reactance. Now, that reactance is going to go down because you cut the antenna a little bit shorter. Let's cut it a little bit shorter and then look at the reactance. And you notice that reactance value goes down. Cut a little bit more off of it. And eventually, that reactance is going to go down to 0. Now, when it goes down to 0 and all you have left is resistance, we call that condition resonance. That you now have a resonant antenna. And what we mean by resonant is the impedance of that antenna looks like a pure resistor with no reactance. Reactance is equal to 0. It's purely resistive. Now that resistive part for different lengths and different forms of antenna can be anything. It can be 5 ohms, 10 ohms, 12 ohms, 100 ohms, 1,000 ohms, 2,000 or 3,000 ohms, can be just about anything. But because the length that we chose, it's going to be around 70 to 75 ohms, especially at 40 meters at 7 megahertz. In free space, it's going to be around 73 ohms with a thin conductor. Okay, let's take another case. You know, we started off talking about a piece of wire that was longer than the half wave of 7 megahertz, we started off talking about 70 feet. Now let's talk about an antenna that's shorter than a half wave. Let's just start off with something simple like 50 ohms. Okay, so we got a 50 feet. We got a 50 feet piece of wire, and we're going to go in the middle of that piece of wire and look at it with this antenna analyzer, MFJ 259 or 269 or whatever you have. And you notice that the resistance, you read the resistance and you read the reactance. Now, this time, instead of being inductive reactance that you saw when it was too long, it's going to look like still a reactance, but it's capacitive reactance. It's got a negative sign in front of that X. Okay, now, and notice what that reactance looks like. It's a number, and it's a larger number. Okay, now let's add a little bit to it. Now, when you add some to it, the value, the number of that reactance is going to go down. Let's add a little bit more to it, and it going to go down again. Add some more, and it's going towards 0. Well, if you add a little bit at a time, you'll notice that that reactance will go to 0. When it goes to 0, all you have is the resistive part. And that is how we define resonance. Resonance is when the reactance is equal to 0 and all you have is purely resistance. And if you'll notice, when you get through cutting that piece of wire or adding to that piece of wire, is going to be the same length. And the formula that you're normally used to and is shown in the ARRL handbooks and others is 468 divided by the frequency, and that'll give you the half wavelength of that wire for a halfway resonant dipole antenna. But anyway, the whole point is a resonant antenna is an antenna where the reactance is equal to 0, and all you have is a resistance. It's purely resistive. Now, it may be some resistance that doesn't allow you to have maximum power transfer from your transceiver, but it will be purely resistive. Could be 10 ohms, could be 100 ohms, could be 1,000 ohms, could be 3,000 ohms, whatever. anyway, that is how we define resonance. Resonance is when your antenna looks like a pure resistance and no reactance.
So, Martin, if your reactance is 0, and you're saying it's possible, you may end up with an impedance that's not 50 ohms. So, since all the new rigs are 50 ohm, they're kind of fixed at 50 ohm. You've got a little bit still of a mismatch there. So I guess you would show a mismatch. You might not transfer all your power. But the older rigs that had the Pi network output, you could probably tune those different impedances, couldn't you?
Well, you can. Let me talk about that a little bit. Let me tell you the condition for you to transfer maximum power out of your transmitter into your antenna. Okay, so you have your transmitter, and the whole idea is whatever power that your transmitter can deliver goes into the antenna. And what we know is, how do we get the most power that we can into your antenna? Okay, what I'm going to quote to you is the maximum power transfer theorem. And this might sound a little bit complicated, but in the end, you'll see how really simple it is. So just kind of hang in there with me. First of all, we can represent the input impedance of an antenna. In other words, you look into your antenna with an antenna analyzer, and what you see is a resistance and a reactive part. And so we can represent that antenna input impedance with a resistor in series with a reactance. Now that reactance can be either capacitive or inductive. And we represent that reactance by a symbol, and that symbol is X. Okay, and we represent the resistance with a symbol, and that symbol is R. And the way that we write it down on a piece of paper is R plus or minus JX. R plus or minus JX. And that represents the impedance. R is for resistance, and plus or minus J, the X is what represents the value of the reactance. Okay, so we have described how to write down what the impedance of an antenna is. It's R plus or minus X. The plus indicates it's inductive, the minus indicates it's capacitance. So it's one of those. It's either capacitive or it's inductive. Okay, now let's talk about the transmitter. The transmitter can also have an impedance. It also will be R plus or minus JX. And the load, which is the antenna, can also be represented as an R antenna plus or minus JX antenna. Okay, so when you hook those two together, you're trying to take power from the transmitter and put it into the antenna. Now, here's the condition for maximum power transfer. Let's say that the transmitter's R plus JX. R sub S stands for source, R, the resistance of the source, plus JX sub S, in other words, the reactance of the source. Okay, we're going to connect that to the antenna, and we're going to call it R sub A, R antenna, plus or minus, well, in this case, let's call it R sub A minus JX sub A. In other words, the resistance and reactive part, in this case, is capacitance of the antenna. Okay, so the maximum power transfer theorem says that in order to obtain maximum power transfer, the impedance of the transmitter and the antenna has to be the complex conjugate of each other. And all that means is when you have an R and you have an X, the conjugate of it is the opposite of X. In other words, if you have a plus X on a transmitter, it's a minus X on the transmitter. On the antenna. Plus X on the transmitter and minus X on the antenna. And the R's are the same. That's the complex conjugate. Now, in that case, you get maximum power transfer. I know that sounded complicated, but let me say it in a totally different way. That's going to make it very clear to you. The first step is that the resistance of the transmitter and the resistance of the antenna has to be the same. Okay, the reactance of the transmitter and the reactance of the antenna has to be the negative of each other. Okay, now what this means is if the transmitter is a 100 ohm resistor in series with 100 ohm plus reactance, and the transmitter needs to be 100 ohm resistance and a minus 100 ohms of reactance. And that gives you maximum power transfer. Now, let me make it even simpler. All of our transmitters now for ham radio operation, just about all of them are purely 50 ohm resistive, no reactance. So what that means is the complex conjugate of a pure 50 ohm resistance is simply a pure 50 ohm resistance for the load. So all you have to do in order to get maximum power transfer from your transmitter into your antenna is to make your antenna look like a 50 ohm resistor. So whatever your antenna looks like, you need to put something between your antenna and your transmitter to make it look like 50 ohms. Let's take, for example, a mobile antenna, mobile whip that you say 8-foot mobile whip you have mounted on your car. Well, that's and at 7 megahertz is going to be very, very capacitive reactance. And what we need to do is to cancel out that reactance with a coil. So we'll put a coil there and adjust the value of that coil. Just keep increasing the coil until you get the reactance to be 0, and then you're left with a resistive part. In this case, at 7 megahertz, it'd be pretty low. But at least you've canceled out the reactive part and you only have resistance. Let's just assume it's somewhere, let's say, for example, 10 ohms of purely resistance. Then what you need to do to get maximum power transfer is to transform that 10 ohms up to 50 ohms. There's many ways of doing this, and the simplest way is once you cancel that reactance out with a loading coil, put a transformer there and transform it up to 50 ohms, and then you can get maximum power transfer into your antenna. Anyway, that's the maximum power transfer theorem, and that's how you can get maximum power from your transmitter into your antenna. And I know there's going to be lots of questions, so please call and ask me.
Yeah, there's already some discussion in the chat room. So let's jump into this and see how this plays in place. Now, some people say that a tuner just fools a transmitter. It matches the tuner where it doesn't hurt the radio, basically. But I guess my question is there a difference having the tune circuits right at the feed point of the antenna versus having the tuner at the radio end?
Well, there is a difference. If you have the matching network, the antenna tuner, right at the antenna, let's talk about a mobile whip that's on your antenna.
Right.
And you put the matching network or your antenna tuner right there at the antenna. What it does is to transform the impedance of that mobile whip into a pure 50 ohm resistor, which matches the transmission line of your coax, which is normally 50 ohm impedance. And what that does is to minimize any loss that you have in your coax that connects your transmitter to your mobile transmitter. From the antenna to your transmitter minimizes the loss. Now, if you tune it at the transmitter side and you have the piece of coax between your transmitter and your antenna, then you can get some very high losses in that piece of transmission line. If you, in this special case of a mobile antenna, if you will cancel out all that reactance, and because that mobile antenna at 7 megahertz is so short, there's a lot of capacitance reactance, and you cancel that out, and you get a small resistance, and you can minimize, even though the resistance is not 50 ohms, you can minimize lots of loss just by resonating it. In other words, canceling out all the reactance.
So you're going to have a lot better power transfer if the tuner is, of course, at the feed point and not back at the radio. Let's say you got 100 feet of coax, between your radio and your antenna. I guess at the radio end, it is going to tune it, and it like I think what you're saying is it works a little differently. It does make the radio think it's 50 ohms, and it makes it think things are okay, but then you're going to have loss through that antenna system, that coax, right, that feed line.
Well, that's exactly right. Your transmitter is going to be putting all the power into that piece of coax, but that piece of coax is going to be lossy and dissipating it as heat. You can prove for yourself. I think the handbook, I know the antenna book, comes with a program called TLW, Transmission Line for Windows, and you can plug in the length of your coax and the impedance of your antenna, and it will calculate for you the SWR at the transmitter end of that piece of coax and the loss that you have in that coax. And you can see that if you take the impedance of that antenna by itself, you can see what the loss in the coax is, and then you can insert a coil in the antenna itself to cancel the reactance out, and then you can see again what the loss is in that piece of coax from the antenna to your transmitter, and you can easily show yourself what the difference is, and you would be amazed at what a little coil at your antenna would do for you.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the reasons I like. I've got an auto tuner out at the antenna. I always, feel that's the best place to put it. Now, of course, these radios have these tuners built in, but they're only going to match maybe 3 or 4 to 1, maybe 5 to 1, I guess. It's not going to match a real wide impedance difference there.
That's right. They're called line flattener, and it just takes low values of SWR and reduce it so it's acceptable. Most radios can accept 2 to 1 SWR and be okay. Some of the earlier radios had to protect itself and reduce power when the SWR goes out. But if you can get your antenna to 2 to 1, it's probably going to be just fine, and you won't lose much power, and it won't hurt your radio. So you don't necessarily need to make your SWR 1 to 1.
Well, and you and I have talked a little about this. Here's this is a inverted V I've got outside, and this is what I measured with an analyzer. At 3828, I got 0, X is 0, and pretty close to 50 ohms, there's 45. Now, if I tune either side of that, let's say that's 3828. If I go down to 3702, of course, I start getting out of resonance, and you can see X goes up to 29, and R's done gone up to 89. If I tune the other way, close to 2 to 1, the X is up to 16 and resistive of 28. Now, talk to me about that there. So, still, that antenna might function pretty good, won't it? At 28 ohms resistance.
Yeah, that's fine. You can get most of your power into your antenna. I mean, there's two things you need to worry about: how much loss you have, because SWR is not 1-to-1, and how your radio is going to react. I mean, if you have a very high SWR, it could cause your radio to fold back in power and it reduces power, or it could cause your radio to start heating up. And the other thing to worry about is your transmission line. Your transmission line may start to heat up and you lose power in your transmission line. Now, your transmission line is your piece of coax that goes from your transmitter to your antenna. And you have much less loss at lower frequency at 80 meter, 75 meter band than you have at, say, 10 meters. At 10 meters, your losses are much greater than they are on the 75 meter band in your coax.
So let me ask you another question here. We'll put the phone line up here in just a minute. Let's say I tune this antenna at the transmitter, so I'm actually tuning the coax and everything. I assume that means the coax actually then becomes part of the antenna. Is that right?
Well, it could mean that. You know, a good thing to do is at the feed point of your antenna is to decouple your coax from your antenna itself. And you do that by using a choke balun, lots of beads or something that will isolate the coax from the antenna itself. And it will keep RF off of the shield of that coax. And that does several things. I mean, one thing is that if your transmission line is not radiating, then it doesn't combine and interfere and change the pattern of the antenna that you have there. So it's a good idea to put some kind of isolation between your coax and your antenna.
Yeah, well, 130 feet of my coax is buried, so I really wouldn't want that to be part of my antenna for sure.
Well, that's true.
Yeah. Hey, I just put the phone number up, 901-286-1116, if people would like to call in. And, Martin, Walter and I, we started on this cobweb project, and we took a lot of different plans from different people. And we went with the one where they used the double wire for the elements. And Martin, they call it figure of 8 wire. Have you heard that before? I've never heard that before myself.
I've never heard of that in relation to a cobweb antenna.
Well, that might be because this design was from England. Maybe that's what they call that type wire. It's like a speaker wire or a zip wire. They call it figure of 8, and it's referenced that a lot of times. But anyway, we went with the zip wire, and we tried going that approach. And Martin, we had good luck on a couple elements, and there's one right there. Look, you're talking about reactance. There's 0, and resistance of 48. That's on 15 meters. I think Walter and I got two bands that looked really good like that, and the other bands looked just so bad that we couldn't do anything with them. But like you mentioned, if you can make one work like this, you should be able to make them all work. And maybe now, after what you've explained, will help us kind of understand what we're doing.
Okay. Well, let's go back to the dipole. If you take a dipole with just a straight piece of wire that you feed it right into the middle of it, if it's in free space, nothing around it, then the thin conductor will have about 73 ohms of pure resistive if it's resonant. Okay, now if you shorten that dipole in any way, cutting off some of the length of it and adding a capacitive hat, cutting off the length of it and adding an inductor, or even if you take it and fold it into a different shape like a square. And that's what a cobweb is. You
Yeah.
take a full-size dipole and you fold it into a square, just like that you have on
Yep.
a picture. Now, the reason it's called a cobweb is that you parallel these dipoles, and you have multiple parallel dipoles folded into a square. Now, what happens is whenever you take a dipole, a full length half wave, electrical half wave length of wire, full length, you get about 73 ohms of pure resistance. Now, if you shorten it in any way, that resistive part is going to reduce. It's going to get smaller and smaller. And you may have to change the length of it to get it into resonant again.
Yeah.
In other words, X is equal to 0 and it's purely resistive. But it
Right.
so happens if you fold it into a square, that resistive part will be around 12 and a half ohms. And and at each band, 20 meters, 17 meters, 15 meters, 12 meters, 10 meters, 6 meters, each one of those bands, the impedance, the resistive part, and because it's resonance with no reactance, it's going to be about 12 and a half ohm of resistance.
Uh-huh.
And that makes it really, really simple, because then you can use one transformer where you parallel connect all the inputs, and a 4-to-1 transformer would transform that 12 and a half ohms up to 50 ohms, and you can get 50 ohms
Right.
purely resistive. And one of the characteristics of a cobweb is that the impedance, the SWR, stays pretty flat throughout that whole band. Now, let's talk
Yeah.
about.
Hey, Martin, we got someone on the phone. Who's on the phone?
Hello, this is Brett Glass, KI7JSR, calling you from Laramie, Wyoming.
KI7
KI7JSR.
JSR, and your name again?
Brett Glass.
Brett. Okay,
Kilo,
Brett.
Kilo India 7 Juliet Sierra Romeo.
And you're in Wyoming?
That is correct.
Okay, great. Hey, real quick, what's your question here? You got Martin here.
Yes.
Hey, Jess.
Well, I have an interesting situation. I have a 66-foot square lot, and I am trying to find a good antenna for 80 meters and perhaps even longer wavelengths. I also have power lines running nearby, so I pretty much have to run along one side of the lot. I'm looking for the best solution to that. I've been asking a lot of people. I'm considering going with a mag loop, but I'd like to see if there is some form of wire antenna that I can string up that will work.
Okay, Jess, if you can put a piece of wire from diagonal corner to diagonal corner, in other words, make it as long as you can, and feed it with ladder line, 450 ohm line, or even better, open wire line, which is not very common now, but ladder line is very common and it's very low loss. And if you can use ideally a balance line antenna tuner like the one that we have, now you can substitute a balun and a normal antenna tuner, but for maximum efficiency, a fully balanced line antenna tuner with 450 ohm ladder line, because that's more available and the longest length of a wire, you can make a antenna that should work for you over all the bands from 80 through 10 meters, and I think you would be very happy with that.
Yeah, I've thought about trying that. Unfortunately, the house is 1/4 of the lot, so it's feeding from the center isn't the ideal thing. I'm wondering, what do you think of the end-fed random wire tuners, such as the one that Icom has, that is supposed to be able to tune any long wire to an appropriate frequency?
I'm not familiar with the end-fed antenna tuner that Icom has, but we have an in-fed all-band antenna. It's a piece of wire that will stretch from your transmitter out, and you need some kind of a counterpause, and you don't need an antenna tuner with it if you use it in the proper way. And it will radiate.
So, Martin, that end-fed that you've got, the end that you feed it, is that down close to the transmitter, and then do you need to take the distal end out and up a little bit, or how do you position that?
Okay. Well, an end-fed antenna, where you feed it, has a very high impedance. So you need to have something there that would transform it down so it will get it to a point where a transmitter can provide power into it. In other words, you need to transform the 1, 2, 3,000 ohms down to about 50 ohms. And the end-fed antenna that we have has a box that has a matching transformer that will transform the impedance of that antenna at each one of the ham bands that you want to operate on down to where it will match the antenna. So you can put that feed point wherever you want and have a counterpause at that point. So you can use a piece of coax and connect to that box and feed that antenna that way. So you have the feed point at one end of the antenna, and the other end of that antenna can be anywhere. It can be hanging over a tree, it can be between two poles, and that's a very easy antenna to use.
Yeah, I think
that is something that I'm considering. I'm also looking at that. I found the model number. It's called the AH4 auto tuner, to see if maybe that could be an appropriate thing to use. Apparently, it takes coax, which is nice because then I can run a feed line out to it, and I know that won't radiate as long as it's grounded.
Well, what I'm saying, Jess, is with this antenna that I'm describing from MFJ, you don't need an antenna tuner.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think Walter, one of my friend down the street, Walter, that you met, Walter has one of those antennas, and we played with it this summer in the backyard, and he's got it in his backpack to go portable with it. Like if he's got his radio set up on a picnic table, basically he ties the end where the ballon is at the picnic table, and he runs it out at about a 45-degree angle, and the end goes out to a tree limb, and that thing worked great on all bands.
Yeah, well, it's very simple. Just a piece of wire with a box that transforms it, and you don't have to have an expensive antenna tuner, and you don't have to supply power to it. You just put it up and operate. Hope that helped you out, Jess.
What would you recommend? What kind of box would you recommend? Do you have a particular brand name or model or specifications for that?
Oh, it all comes with it.
When you say box, I think what Martin's saying, it's just an enclosure that's got his matching transformer inside of. I mean, it comes with the antenna, and I actually screw a piece of coax onto it.
Yeah, that's all you need. You just connect your transmitter to that matching box, and you're ready to go.
Where should I look to find the matching box?
Yeah. Oh, it comes with it. It's part of the antenna. It's a whole unit.
Yeah, and Brett, you don't even tune it. It's already tuned. It's just an enclosed box to keep the weather out. It's got a matching transformer inside it that matches like Martin said, the 2,000 ohm impedance down to 50. You screw your coax on the bottom. You don't tune it. There's no knobs. There's nothing to touch. You just hang it up and work it.
Mm-hmm. Sounds good. Where should I shop for that?
Well, MFJ's got it.
Yeah, go to MFJ Enterprises. You can just type in MFJ and go directly to the MFJ website and search for half-wave antenna or just search for antennas.
Just look for antennas that are in-fed, and you'll see it there.
Sounds good. Okay, I will give it a try.
All
And
right.
by the way, is there any advantage to doing an inverted L as opposed to just running the wires straight out?
Well, running it, the wire straight out is the best way to do it.
You know, Martin, my experience on an inverted L is going to have a pretty low impedance at the bottom. I'm guessing like a vertical almost. And
No, inverted L is a way of shortening your antenna.
yeah,
You're
it just makes
top-loading it.
it makes the antenna look taller. It makes it look like a taller vertical, basically. So, you know, vertical antenna is going to have a lot lower impedance there. So, I don't think you would take this in-fed antenna Martin's talking about and put it in an inverted L. It probably wouldn't work properly.
Yeah, best way, just stretch it out as long as you can. If you have to bend it and all that, you can do that. But the best way would be just run it as straight as you can for as long as you can.
So, hey, Brett, do you have a fence around your yard or anything?
There's a fence around part of the yard.
Uh-huh.
I just need to keep the ends away from kids in the neighborhood too.
I've seen people take a wire or an antenna and go down the very top of the fence and just all the way down the fence, you know, and it's 6 feet off the ground and it works okay. You could actually put you some little poles there and raise it up another 4 or 5 or 6 feet, you know, off that fence or something. Well, anyway, hopefully that'll help you, Brett. Thanks for calling.
Yes, thank you. All ideas are welcome, and I think you've helped me here. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Hey, well, thanks for calling.
All right, guys, phone's still open, 901-286-1116. And, you know, so we're learning a little bit about antennas tonight. That's good. And Martin, Walter and I have decided that we've already stripped our zip wires off our cobweb, and we're going to put the single wire on there, and we're going to go with the matching. The thing that was interesting about using the double wire is we wasn't going to have to put a matching device in there. It was going to come out around 50 ohms. But like I said, we had more issues on a couple bands, and we decided just to go back to kind of the standard configuration. So, but hey, Walter and I, we got the mechanical part down here. Let me show you just. I'll run through some pictures about 1 minute here. So Walter and I, we said we're going to build us a cobweb, and there's that wire I'm talking about right there. It's like lamp cord or speaker wire, and there's our box for our feed point right there, and we get to work. We cut us some angle iron. We put it in a cross piece to hold our PVC pipe, and we do a little welding job there and put that together. And then let's see, it's going to come out kind of like that. There it is with the feed point on there, and we take it outside and we start stretching wires. Let's see. That's our feed box right there. No balun or no matching, and we stretch it out there. And like I say, we had some luck, but not great luck. And we're gonna go to the other thing. Now, I guess there's many ways to match, and this is not exactly how MFJ does their cobweb, but here's the article we have to match our cobweb with the single wires. And as we build a 1-to-1 balun right there, and we use 50 ohm cable, Martin. We parallel 2 pieces of 50 ohm cable, and when you parallel, two 50 ohm resistors, that gives you 25 ohms. So that cable there gives you an impedance of like 25 ohms. So you build 2 of those. You build 2 of them, and then you put them side by side. And if you look over on the left side, you're paralleling. You got 25 ohm on one toroid and 25 the other. You parallel them, and that gives you half of 25, which gives you 12 and a half ohms. Back on the other side, you put them in series. 25 and 25 gives you 50. So that's kind of the concept of the matching device that we're going to try. And you know what, Martin, if people don't want to try to build something like this, they can buy these parts from MFJ, right? You sell them the matching or whatever they need, right?
Oh, we do. We sell them any part that they need to build the cobweb, including the fiberglass posts, the matching networks, the wire, the end insulators. But what you built should work just fine. And you can test that by putting a 12 ohm resistor or so
Mm-hmm.
at the input and measuring the output, which should be 50 ohms, and you can see what frequencies uh, will give you the best SWR.
Yeah, and the author did that, and he's got quite a nice chart on the website that shows the insertion loss and everything there on this matching device he built there. Let's see. So, the thing I talked to Martin about earlier. I'm not sure if this is SWR or resonant frequency, or maybe both are the same, but this was interesting to me. If you look at a cobweb, the cobweb is the red dots, and a dipole is the blue dots. And look at the difference when you raise this antenna off ground. We know that the distance above ground affects impedance and different things in SWR. If you look at the blue dipole at 10 and 15 feet, look here, the resonant frequency is 13.8 megahertz. But if you raise it up to 30 feet, the impedance of that same antenna, not making any changes, or not the impedance, but the resonant frequency, looks like it jumps up to 1410, so it moves. But look at that cobweb. The nice thing about the cobweb is it looks like height is not an issue to change things. At 10 feet, 20 feet, 45 feet, it's pretty consistent. So what do you think about that, Martin?
Well, you're right. I'm sure that almost everyone has tuned up their dipole at a low level above ground because that's easy to do. And then when they put it up to where they want to operate it, they find that their resonant frequency, the lowest SWR frequency, has changed. And from that diagram that you show, that even if you change the height above ground, the resonant frequency stays pretty much the same. That's pretty amazing.
And when I tune an antenna, I say, "Oh man, I got this thing perfect," and then you raise it up in the air, and it's not perfect,
Yeah.
And I don't have a bucket truck to go up there and make changes at that height.
Well, I'm sure everybody has experienced that.
Here's some typical SWR readings on the cobweb. Look at that. I mean, it is consistent across every band.
That's pretty incredible, isn't it?
It is. It is.
SWR at the band that you want to operate on.
And Martin, I thought at first when I saw the cobweb, I'm thinking, okay, well, it's a small antenna and it's wrapped around and it's going to have a little less efficiency or something. But I've been studying it, and I've got so many people that have talked about how well that antenna has worked. And they've compared it with a vertical. The vertical's omnidirectional, the cobweb's omnidirectional. They've compared it with their vertical. And they're seeing gain over the vertical. They're receiving better. They're talking to all the places that they did with that vertical. It seems to function about as good as, a stretched out antenna.
Well, you're right. There's a lot of advantages of a cobweb over a vertical. A vertical will pick up lots of noise because it's vertically polarized, and the cobweb is horizontally polarized, so it's inherently a much quieter antenna. And a vertical antenna takes a lot of hardware, lots of alumino, because it's multi-band. You got to have lots of stuff on it. And the vertical antenna's got to have some kind of a counterpulse system, either a ground or a system of counterpulses.
Yeah.
And verticals is very expensive, and it's not always low profile.
Well, I went a little different route. I mean, I used to have the aluminum antenna. I think what was it? The was it high gain 18 AVQ. That was a 80 meter through 10 meter. I finally gave it away to a new ham. But you know, this time just as a spare antenna, and I've got resonant antennas on all the bands out there, but I've got one that's not resonant, and it's just about a 70-foot straight up piece of wire hooked to that little auto tuner at the base and a bunch of buried radials. And you know, it's not a complicated, a lot of aluminum, but there's still a lot of parts in that tuner box. So
Oh, that'll work fine. You know, the whole problem is just about anything will radiate. You just got to get the power into it, and that's the function of that antenna tuner. And that can make a separate topic in itself. How do you get power into it?
And you know, Martin, here's a funny story. At my other house, I had a 1980 El Camino truck that I was redoing, and it was sitting out in the backyard. And I had that antenna tuner out there, and of course one side's grounded. And I put that antenna tuner, the antenna cable, over to the bumper of the El Camino truck. In theory, making the truck the antenna. Of course, this setting, it's got some nice insulators. It's got 4 nice rubber insulators with air in them, you know. And I made a contact up in Washington State. And the guy says, "Your mobile is sounding really good." And I said, "You don't understand. I'm not mobile. I'm using my truck as the antenna." But
Well,
that tuner,
that's a really good example.
yeah.
Of, you know, you can put power into just about anything, and it's going to go out. It's going to radiate.
Well, and these smart tuners do all the work for you. You know, all that all the capacitance and all the inductance. It seems like these tuners are smart enough to just cancel all that out.
Well, you're right. You know, the tuners that we make, and not all of them do that, they actually measure the impedance of your antenna and then calculate what components that's needed to match an antenna, and almost instantly match your antenna. And they're smart in that as you tune up and down your bands, and every time it matches it, it will remember that frequency and the component values that it takes to match it. So that as you're tuning throughout the band and on different bands, your SWR is always low, and you can transmit, and you don't even know that anything is happening. All you know is that your SWR is low enough for you to start transmitting. Now that's pretty smart.
Yeah, it really is. So the phone number, guys, is 901-286-1116. If you want to call in, if you're listening on shortwave and not watching, the number is 901-286-1116. Give us a call and talk with Martin there, and we're talking antennas tonight. Hey, Martin, I want to make one announcement here real quick. It's not related to antennas, but
Okay.
I've got a personal Facebook account, and you got to have a personal Facebook account before you can make a group. Like we got a group. Well, I spend all my time in a group. I spend very little time in my personal Facebook, and it's mostly family. Plus, probably people would not like my political thoughts, so I'll make people mad sometimes. So anyway, I don't approve people. I have 100 people a day asking to be friends with me in my personal Facebook group, and I just don't approve them. And boy, I've got one guy that's been all mad at me because I denied being friends with him, and I explained to him. I said, I don't use personal, or it's just family. I'm on w5kub.com. That's where I have all my friends. But he sent me another note. He's mad at me again because I still hadn't approved him as a friend. So I don't know, man. Facebook could get you in trouble, that's for sure.
I understand. Know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So Martin, you know, there's a lot of things again that we didn't touch on that affect the antennas. Let's see if I got a picture here. You know, the wire type, the wire that was mentioned in these plans was quoted as having a PVC insulation on it. And your insulation affects your velocity factor. That affects the length of your wire. It's not just cut it this length. You gotta figure in your velocity factor too, don't you?
Well, you do. You do. I mean, basically, you adjust the length of the wire until it's resonance. In other words, X is equal to 0, and it's purely resistive. But there's no real reason to use a wire that has insulation.
Right.
It only adds to the weight of it. Just use plain, ordinary wire that's not insulated.
Well, it does, and you can see here this wire is like lamp cord. It looks like it's got some type of rubber insulation. I'm sure it's not PVC, so I'm sure it has a completely different velocity factor. It's probably off a little bit from what the author quoted. And you're right, it's heavy, and by putting those double strands on each one of those, it is heavy, and we noticed that on our supports that we put together, and it drooped a little bit. So what we did, we came back and we welded a. Let's see if I got a picture here. We came back and we put us there. Well, we put us a little pole on there with an eyelet on top to tie, support out to the elements with to hold them up. And my thought was, I'm gonna tie a rope in that loop right there, and I'm gonna pull this up under a tree limb about 50 feet in the air. That's my plan.
Good idea.
That's the plan right there. So
Wow,
I know a lot of these antennas, and even I looked at yours when I was down there. The wire is small, and you know what? That makes it kind of invisible. You don't see that wire very much.
Well, that's one of the big advantages of a cobweb. It's the whole antenna is almost invisible. It's just in one single plane, and the wire is small, and it's a great antenna. It's unbelievable.
I'm already looking at adding 40 meters to it when I get this thing working. And you know what? I'm looking. I mean, right now those rods there are those arms are about 6 foot each. But I'm already looking, man, to put 40 on there. That's going to have to be probably about 13 or 14 feet long on each one of them. That's starting to get a little big, actually, for me.
Mm-hmm. Well, but you can cover 40 meters and 60 meters all the way up through 6 meters. That's pretty good for that amount of space.
Yep. So, okay, 901-286-1116. Let me see if there's anything else in the chat room. Mike is saying his cobweb is very quiet compared to his dipoles. We've got a number of people that are using the cobweb. Let's see. Okay. We've got several people that have built them. Well, Martin, I think we had a good segment tonight on matching antennas, and hopefully people maybe picked up a little bit of that and understand a little bit more. I never paid a lot of attention. Again, I mean, I've been in electrical engineering and a ham for 54 years, and I've never really paid a lot of attention to capacitance and inductance. Overlooked that all these years. You started me thinking about it, and now I'm seeing what's going on there.
Well, that's a very interesting subject, and ham radio is a learning hobby, and lots of us like that part of it more than just getting on the air and DXing and contesting and rag chewing. They just like playing around, and this is something that the antenna side of it is something that we can do real easy. It gives you a chance to go outside and get some exercise and it's a great thing.
Well, I like building and experimenting, and antennas are one area that you can really have fun with. So that's an area that we're playing with right now. Well, Martin, it's 9:30. Well, it's about time to go home. And if you got you ran out of candy. I was going to say if you get home, you might can have a couple pieces of candy, but it's all gone.
Well, it's all gone, but I hope, and I think the kids are probably filled up their bags and tired, and they're ready to go home and go to sleep and get up early and go to school the next morning. So it's perfect time.
Well, and it's starting to sprinkle a little bit here, so the rain has probably slowed things down. But I don't think we have had any more kids here in the past hour or so, so I think they're gone. Well, Martin, thank you so much for joining us again tonight and talking to us about all this. And we've got, let's see, a show next week. I think we got Glenn Popiel, KW5GP. Glenn is the author of the ARRL books, Arduino for Ham Radio, and he also wrote the book on mesh networks. So he's going to be here in the studio next week, and probably talking about the next book. And what he usually does is we go through each of the little different chapters in a book, and he brings little devices. He built every one of those little devices that's in the book, and we'll kind of show it to you and demonstrate them and get you interested in that. And then I believe the week after, we've got Emmett Hohensee W0QH will be with us. Emmett is the chief engineer of Radio Waves, and of course they build a lot of antennas. And Emmett's been doing some special stuff with drones, flying some drones down in Florida, and he's going to talk a little about that and what they were doing with them. And then he's going to talk about just getting ready for winter with your antennas, getting ready. And in fact, I went out and I worked on some antennas myself the last day or two, because Martin, I don't like going out there when it's real cold, you know.
Oh yeah, I understand.
I just can't do it, man. All right, well, Martin, thank you so much. We're going to go to Hangout now. Hangout is where people can click on that link. If somebody, let's see, did not have any here. Okay, I was getting a Halloween report on the chat room. Didn't have anybody come to some places. So hey, will somebody post the link in the chat room? Post the link in the chat room, and you can click on it and you can join us. We can take up to 10 people. We can have 10 people on video join us in the show here at one time, and we talk about everything from flying airplanes to, hey, we got a doctor here. If you got any ailments, we talk about doctoring, you know. We talk about antennas. We talk about anything and everything. So let's see if somebody will. I'm going to try to put that link in myself. I think I can do it while I'm talking here. So here, okay, Bill just put it in there. Our friend up in Massachusetts just put it in. I just put it in again. So guys, click on that link and you can join us. And Martin, if you want to go home, go head on home and tell Betty we said hello, and we had a good show tonight. I enjoyed it.
Okay, Tom, if you can hang around just for a minute, I got something to say to you.
Okay. Okay. Hang on a second. Hang on. Let me cut the mic here. I'll be going to hang out in a minute. Hang on. Let's see if I can do this. All right.
So you're saying I can ask this cat any question?
The cat is connected to the computer. You just type in the question, it will read his mind. There the answer comes.
You're the man! I've been looking for this for weeks.
Let me. Okay, we're going to go to Hangout now, folks. And if you want to join us on Hangout, the link is in the chat room. Let me open up the Hangout here. And see if anybody's in there. We'll get a few people in there. Let's see who's in here. We got Roy in there. We got Mark in there, and we got Bill in there. Hello, Roy, Mark, and Bill.
Hey, Tom.
Hey.
Hello.
Hey, Tom.
Hey, guys. Let me put this up there. There we go. There we go. Okay. How you guys doing there? Boy, I got a good close-up here of Roy's face. There you go, Roy. Back up just a little bit. There you go. Looking good.
Why
man.
does it do that? I'm not saying anything, and it does that every week. It switches to me, and I don't know why.
Well, I don't know why. It just picked somebody. Nobody's talking, so it just picked you. Now, like Mark, we're always seeing his forehead. You know, you guys need to get cameramen that will, aim the camera properly if you're going to be on a show. If you're going to be on a show of this caliber.
I'm actually thinking of buying a webcam, just for the hangout.
Yeah. Now,
what are you using right now?
Is that a laptop cam? Is that a laptop?
No, it's my phone.
Oh, it's your phone.
Oh, that's
okay.
right. I could tell it 1 week it was, because it was just 2 black bars on either side.
Well, a lot of times if you hold the phone straight up and down, it puts those black bars on the side. People need to understand video is sideways, photos are up and down,
Well,
the picture
should be horizontal too.
Yeah, the picture's much better when you hold that phone sideways and you get a full width of video there. Okay, WA1DWG says, Tom, I am here. DWG, where are you? I don't see him in. He's not in Hangout. DWG, if you think you're in a Hangout, you're in the wrong Hangout with us. I would hang up and try to try to come back in again. You might have went into the wrong Hangout. Also, if somebody wants to join us by telephone, 901-286-1116. Just dial a phone. You don't have to have video. You can join us. And there's Bill up in Uberland.
There's Mike. Mike looks real good.
I mean, Mike. That's Mike. That's Mike up in Uberland.
Yeah, we're up here with our snow.
Ooper. Mike is up in Ooper.
Yeah.
Ooper, eh?
So, are you getting snow up there?
Yes, we got snow.
Boy, I tell you, it's getting really cold here. It's down to 49. Boy, I tell you, I'm about to freeze.
I got 33 degrees.
We're down in the 30s now. I think 37 the last time I looked.
I'm about to freeze. It is going. I don't like winter anymore, man. It gets me now. All right, Tony says thanks for the show. VK3 TNL Tony, VK3. I guess that's Australia. He watched tonight. It's actually tomorrow there, so he's watching us from the future.
Yeah.
Well, I got a guy I chat with. I'm doing a via Echolink in New Zealand, and Frank, his name is. And I told him one time he's 16 hours ahead of me. I said, "Well, Frank, since it's already tomorrow for you, can you tell me what the lottery numbers for today were?"
Yeah, exactly. I think, but those people aren't willing to share that kind of information.
Yeah.
They just won't do it,
No.
They won't do it.
They aren't.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I mean, you could reverse that. Like if he's in an accident tomorrow, he could come back to today and avoid the accident. Maybe.
Yeah, it was a nice show, and I talked about the cobweb because that's what I'm running for my base antenna now.
Oh, you got a cobweb up?
Yeah, but I didn't go with the MFG. I went with
you went with radio waves? Radio waves?
Scout.
Yeah, they're all about the same.
Yeah, I debated between the two of them. I went back and forth.
Yeah.
I watched a lot of video on the MFJ, and when you put it together, you really need to get an antenna analyzer to do it. And when I checked with the radio wave Scout, they had everything just cut. And I know I did like the little bit heavier wire on it that way. So I got it. I put it up, and I didn't do any tuning. I just put it together, and come in, hit the tuner, and boom, 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 quiet on right down SWR and every one of the bands that it was.
Yeah.
And yeah, it is quiet. When I go for my 40-meter dipole, I'm also running radio wave 40-meter double bazooka and a radio wave.
You're using? Have you had much use of it, the cobweb?
The band I've been mostly on is 20 because everything and some local 10. The other bands have been so quiet. I haven't picked anything up.
How do you think
Honolulu with it?
How do you think it works? How do you think
in that thing? Just with the 100 watts.
How do you think the cobweb on 20 works compared to, say, your other antenna on 20? Are they pretty close?
Yeah, I took down a tri-bander. I had up a high gain Thunderbird tri-bander up for years, and my rotor came apart last year, and I took it down. I decided I didn't want to put that big thing back up again, and the antenna was fine, but so I went with the cobweb. And of course, it doesn't have the directional.
Yeah, it's omnidirectional. It's omnidirectional.
Turning the tri-bander, but I don't work DX and I don't work contests. I'm just a rag chewer. So this seems to be working out for me. And plus, I only need one feed line going up.
That's right. And look at all the bands. Tony, VK3TNL, down under. I guess he's down under. That's Australia, right? VK3. That's not New Zealand, is it? What's New Zealand? ZL. ZL's New Zealand.
ZL, yeah.
So he's in Australia. So Tony says he booked the airplane tickets for Dayton yesterday. He said, Tom, I'll see you in 6 months. Wow. Yeah, be sure, Tony, to come by, and we'll be webcasting it. And I think we're in building, of course, this is a new venue. I think we're in building 6. We'll be in spot 6005, I think. Glenn Popel, he's saying good night. Oh, he just left. I was going to say, Glenn Popel, you're supposed to be here next week.
But boy, I did notice the quietness when I got my 40-meter dipole or 80-meter going. I've got the noise level in there, and when I switch it over to the cobweb, everything just goes quiet. Well, I guess it's because it's a horizontal.
And that's really cool too.
And when I put it together, I didn't have time to put it up on the roof. I just had a 3-foot tripod sitting in my backyard with it mounted on that, and it gave me the low SWR.
Man.
I made contacts all over, and I've got it up on a 10-foot tripod on the roof of my house right now with a mast pipe. So I'm probably up about 30 feet with it right now. And there was no changes when I moved it.
Well, you saw, I guess on the show, you saw this picture I showed here that height doesn't seem to affect the cobweb like it affects something else. I mean, that is that's amazing to me right there.
And that way, so yeah, I'm happy with it. But like I said, I got nothing against the MFJ. When I posted in there, I just kind of debated between the two of them, and just I'm checking on, and I just kind of went, I think I'm going to go with the Radio Wave Scout.
Yeah, well, I drive a GM product. What do you drive? I bet you're a Ford man.
No, I got a Chevy and a Ram.
Oh, you got a Chevy and a Dodge. Okay, well, that's, at one time I owned one of all three. A Dodge, a Chevy, and a Ford. And, you know, I like the way the Chevy drives. I really like it much better. It just seems like it drives better. It handles better than the Ford. But then the Dodge, man, you could drive that thing through a brick wall and it wouldn't hurt it, you know.
Yeah, I got an old Dodge Ram truck, so that's what I drive around in.
Yeah.
My wife gets the Equinox.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Okay, so Glenn says good night. He's going to get all my stuff ready for next week. See, okay, so he remembered he's going to be on here. And I see Terry on there too. Terry can probably remind him that he's got to be here.
The other thing I'm surprised with that cobweb, how it held up. A week ago Tuesday, we had an awful storm up here with the waves on Lake Superior were 20 foot high, wiped out a lot of damage on the shoreline, trees down, everything. And I drove back from North Dakota last Tuesday, and I come home into this in even with the 70-mile-an-hour winds and the gusting rain and everything else, that cobweb held up fine up there.
Well, it sounded like you were having some pretty nasty weather up there.
Oh, yeah, you should have seen the waves.
Yeah, well, you know,
But,
I
Lake
can't stand the
Superior is
cold. I
actually
can't
bigger
stand the
than
cold
than
weather
the Indian
now.
Ocean,
So
we get some big waves out there, thundering.
yeah, we'll probably move to Studio C here and do the shows this winter here from Studio C. You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's good that the wind didn't tear it up. Now we built ours. We built ours with this PVC pipe, and that the weather's going to actually eventually get to that. It's going to turn that PVC pipe. The ultraviolet rays are probably going to eventually weaken those. Although we did put little guy. Now I'm sure your cobweb does it have the guy ropes out to each of the supports?
No.
So you can kind of see here. I've got on this. See how I've got the little guy ropes that hook in that eyelet, and they go down to each of the.
No, neither the MFJ or the Radio Wave Scout have that.
Oh, really? Okay.
Like you put on there, no.
Well, first we did it without that, and that wire, like Martin was talking, that wire was heavy, and especially the double wire, and it was pretty heavy, and that PVC pipe was drooping pretty good. So we went ahead and put some little guy ropes on there to hold those elements out straight. And
okay.
Hey, like my winch right there, I just hooked the antenna on it and just winch it right up, man, right there in the shop. You know, get it above our heads. If we need to work on it, we let it down.
Yeah, maybe Emmett or Martin will have to add that to their cobwebs design.
Yeah. I'll see what I got here. I see there I am. There's the center bracket we made right there with the little piece welded on for the feed point to slide in, and let's see. Yeah, we just took angle iron and laid those PVCs across it, and just put 2 stainless steel clamps on there to hold it. So you know it was holding it pretty good.
Yeah, I didn't feel like building anything. I decided I went the easy way and I purchased the Scout. I did the same thing with my dipoles I've made over the years.
Yeah.
I decided to go with double bazookas for either, and I did the easy way and bought the Radio Wave double bazookas for 40 and 80 meters, and just took down my old dipoles that were falling apart and put those up. So I guess as I'm getting older, I decided things were.
Well,
something they're just
the antenna you bought is going to hold up a whole lot better. Hey, look at this! I forgot to tell Walter I had 3 fire extinguishers in there, and I forgot. But I had 2 cans. I had 2 gas cans near there, so we could have had a little bit of a flame, I suppose. But that probably did more damage there than the welding. But let's see. There's our feed point. There it is, winched up. It doesn't look that great. What we did, we just taped where those wires went on the spreaders there. We didn't know exactly where to put them, so we just wrapped them with some duct tape to hold them in place. And after we got it working, we were going to remove the duct tape and physically attach them, to the right place, to stretch it out. Hey, if anybody's watching out there, that's my TS820. I decided to get rid of it. I really didn't want to, but I upgraded some equipment here, and like Kathy says, go out and buy whatever you want. Just get rid of some old stuff.
That sounds familiar.
Anyway, that's a complete 820 there, and it's got a lot of accessories and stuff in it. And I'm probably gonna sell that for about. I'd like to get about $800 out of it. But it's a good radio. What I ended up doing here is I got me a couple weeks ago. I picked me up an AL80B amplifier here, and I also ordered me a Icom 7300. So there's my 7300 in the center. I've got a Kenwood on the left, Icom in the center, and then to the right there we got the Yaesu 991A, and then that's a Kenwood on the top shelf here. So I did all that, and basically I kind of set it up like that. So I've got 811H amp on the right there with one radio, and I put
What
my.
are you worried about going out and buying these for? You just go to the Hamfest and you wind up winning these radios. So.
Well, I don't win that many, you know. And then I got my 7300 there hooked to that AL80B amplifier there. So.
Yeah.
Anyway, I made a few contacts with it. You know, I mean, no great improvement, but you know, I just got to the point where I wanted something new to play with.
Yeah, I've only got two HF radios, my Kenwood 450 and my Icom 718.
So Tom, when you worked the ice, were you using your 7300 with the linear?
Well, I was, but I could have done it on the other radios probably equally well. There's not that much difference in power, you know, between the 811H and.
No. I was just curious if that's what you were using.
Yeah, that's what I used. I basically put that in as my main operating now, the 7300. I'm still learning all the buttons on it. You know.
Oh Lord.
It's a lot of stuff to. Have you got one, or have you looked at it?
At it. Where was it? I think it was at Dayton.
Yeah, it's got a lot of things you got to learn. I got to learn new things to press and how you can set different things. So, I mean, you know, out of the box, it's working fine. But there's a lot of things I need to set the clock in it. I hadn't even figured that out yet. Okay, Ed WB5 ORT said he's curious now if he could do some aluminum brazing to create the same thing. Well, I've got some aluminum angle iron, and basically, Ed, we just put the. Let me see if I can find a picture here. We just put the angle iron in an X shape, you know, like this, or T shape, to clamp the pipes or the PVC pipe on. And I just, you know, put it 90 degrees apart, and we spot welded it. Now, can you do that with aluminum? Of course you can. I don't know about brazing. I don't think you braze aluminum. You'd have to probably TIG weld it. I think I can with my MIG welder. I think I can weld aluminum, but I would have to put a different wire in. I would have to also change the gas. I believe I have to change the gas possibly to total argon. I'm not sure. Right now, welding steel, it's a mixture of CO2 and argon with the steel wire. But yeah, you could, you know, if you know how to weld aluminum, and I've never practiced on aluminum, you can do the same thing with aluminum and make it cross piece.
I worked as a welder.
Yeah.
Between Milwaukee and Minneapolis years ago. And I could do MIG welding with no problem, stick welding, but that TIG was something else. I did some in training and learning, but I never really did it on a job because welding aluminum doesn't show heat or anything. Next thing you know, poof.
Yeah, next thing you probably have a hole through it, right?
Yeah, so I worked in a plant in Milwaukee where a lot of guys were just, all they did was stainless steel and aluminum welding, and I watched those guys with it. It was like an art.
Yeah, I've never really got into it because most of my stuff I do is going to be steel anyway. So, I don't want to go to trouble to buy, the gas I need for it and everything. It'd kind of be a waste probably, but, I was really good. I learned to stick weld in high school in FFA, Future Farmers of America. We had shop and stuff, and we practiced stick welding, and all of us 16-year-olds would be around the table and we'd be doing our welding to get it graded, and the teacher says, okay, I want you to run 3 beads, we're going to grade you on running a bead down this metal. And here you are, you're welding, you're running that bead, and all the other guys are shaking the table like this, while you're doing your bead,
I found out one thing with TIG welding is that it's high frequency stuff. The one thing the instructor told us, I was in a skill vocational class at the time, and he says, when we were in our little booth and you have the curtain and you're TIG welding, and he says, make sure you don't touch the tip to your work.
Yeah.
You're grounded in. It's not like MIG where you put the wire in and stuff. You got your
where you draw an arc. Yeah.
Your rod you're feeding, and he says, don't touch the tip. Well, one afternoon I was welding away in my practice booth. The next thing I knew, I found myself laying on my back outside the booth on the floor.
Oh man.
He walked by and says, "You touched the tip, didn't you?"
Oh boy. Well, you know, I could stick weld pretty good, and I always wanted to MIG weld, so I bought me this MIG welder about, I don't know, 6 or 7 years ago, and I mean, yeah, it's pretty good. I mean, it does good. I thought I was better with the stick welding, but you know, I've come along with the MIG stuff. Okay. But yeah, we're just gonna pull that thing. See if I had. We were gonna. Yeah, we're gonna. That's the support there. We're just gonna tie a rope in that thing and pull it up in the air about 40 feet in the air.
I'll have to keep that in mind if my radio wave scout starts to sag too much. I'll say, well, I can always go just clamp something in the middle of the pipe and
yeah, you could
couple
put
feet above and run rope it into the porch. There you go.
Yeah, you could do that. You could put.
No, yeah. Remember that crane, Tom? When you go up 75, where that big flag was just south of Dayton, hanging on the crane.
Yeah. That'd be good to hang it from.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's an iconic flag there. Our old out here has.
You know, that thing's been out there. That thing's been out there many years. Just about every year we drive up here, it's up there. It's on the left side of the road, and we're coming from the south. And I don't know if it'll be there every year or not, but it's just been here quite a bit.
Yeah, now they moved our location. I don't want to go over to Dayton anymore.
Yeah, yeah. Now here's, well, I don't know who makes this cobweb here, but see this cobweb here? It's got the support, the rope support there, Mike. I think that's because this has the 40 meter on it. I think if you put the 40 meter on there, you have to put that little rope support thing on top, because those things.
Yeah, I didn't get the 40 meter add-on.
Yeah,
they had it available, but I've got a 40 meter double bazooka out there, so I didn't bother with dipole. So I didn't bother with the 40 meter add-on.
Those arms for 20 through 10, those arms are about 6 foot long. It's quite compact.
Yeah,
but
that's what it measures on the Scout is 12 feet across.
Yes, 12 feet across. It's 6 feet on each side, and I figured out the distance for 40 to put 40 on there, and it was going to have to come out about 14 feet on each side to get the 40, you know, strung around it. So that's why they got that rope on there.
Yeah, they it got the add-on. You had to add on the end of each of the arms, and then with the wire on. And I go, I've already got the 40 meter double bazooka. So
okay, well, Mark P is asking, how do you run the coax when it's hanging 40 feet in the air? Well, pretty simple. What we'll do is, let me see if I got a picture here of the coax with a loop on it. Let's see. Well, let me look. I've got one somewhere. Maybe that. All right. Well, now we got what we call a dirty ballon on there. It's just coiled up wire. But what I would do, I would bring that wire back to the center. I'd run that wire down the center of that support to the very center of the cross pieces, and I would fasten it there, and then I'd drop that coax straight down 40 feet. Just drop it straight down in the air.
Yeah, that's what I do. I put a little loop on my coax before I put it in there, and then I run it over to the mass pipe and then down. But yeah, I don't know what the ballon is in the radio wave. I did, I didn't unscrew it. I think it was all sealed. It all came that way. I said.
Well, I'm going to build, this is what we're doing in this one to match it. We take two 1-to-1 ballons like this right here. We put them back to back, and we tie them together. That gives you a 4-to-1. And I've got the toroids here. Just got them in today. They were about $6. And then they use some RG 316 coax to wind these with. which is really cheap, and it's little small coax, and it's pretty high power. So, well, there's a picture of it right there. You can see it's that Teflon. Yeah. It's Teflon, and everything is silver coated. The center conductor is silver coated. The outside is silver coated. It's that Teflon. It's that small stuff. And
yeah,
I looked.
The only one up here in the UP that anybody else is up here has even ever had one. I put it up and I had all kinds of questions. People are asking me, well, what's the balance inside the box? I said, it's in there. It came already with the wires already connected in there.
Well, I mean, if they're interested,
I didn't want to take the cover off to go in and look.
If they're interested in building one, this can be built for about $13 right here. I've got the plans, and you can get the parts. I mean, I ordered these from these toroids. I ordered them out of Florida, and they were here in 3 days. And I think I ordered 16 feet of that coax. It was like $6 or something, and so if they want to build it, that will convert that 12.5 ohm to 50 ohms. So that's what they need right there, And we're just going to put it. We're going to put it inside the box. We're gonna take it out. That's the old wire, but we're gonna just put it inside the box and right there and run the single wires. And like I showed tonight, I mean, man, we had one or two of the antennas was perfect. Man, look at that, X equals 0, and look at that, SWR of 1.0. I mean, that wire, man, it was right on. And like I said, we had a couple of them, but then we had the other 3 were just all screwed up. So we're gonna start over.
With the 5 bands, I got 20 through 10 on my Scout. I can just switch. On the radio from each band and just hit tune and boom, boom, boom. There, it's right low in all 5 of them.
Uh-huh.
Uh-oh, LA's up 3-1 over Houston. Uh-oh.
Oh, yeah?
I got the World Series game. I'm going on the TV muted here watching it. So.
I hadn't watched any of it this year.
Well, I don't care about either team, but I just watching it in the background here. I imagine LA is going to stretch it out to us, Game 7.
Well, that makes it more exciting, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
We took our little box off the end and we put a little bit bigger box in there. It was so crowded and we were getting all the wires in there. We didn't have enough room. So I've got we're putting a wider box on the end out there.
Yeah, that's one thing. When the antenna was delivered, all the wires were connected in that box already, color coded.
Yeah.
And you just basically put the arms. You put that thing together and have it up in the air in less than a half hour. You just put the arms together. I put it on a 3-foot tripod. Put the 4 arms together, and just ran each of the wires around the arms, and you just tie them so they're like 6 inches apart. They give you a little tying rope, and I didn't even have to put a analyzer on it or anything in that Scout. I just put it together like that. Went in, looked up the feed line laying on the ground up to the thing just about 6 feet off the ground, and boom, they all tuned. I said, okay, close enough. Yeah.
Well, we didn't have antenna back then. I didn't know anything about antennas like that. All we had was a dipole for one band, man. Yeah. You know, we didn't have all this fancy stuff, but multi-band dipoles and all that stuff. I don't know. Maybe I just didn't know. Maybe I just wasn't hanging out around the right people.
And then when you try to describe it to somebody, best way I tell them is, you ever remember the clothesline in your pole in your backyard with the single pole in the 4 arms, and you had the clotheslines going around?
Right. Yeah. You tell the wife. You tell the wife, I bought you a clothesline to put in the backyard, but I just want one for old time's sakes, but you don't have to put any clothes on it.
Well, so one guy suggested to me that I just to decorate it up, I should hang some bra and panties.
Oh yeah, yeah, hang something on it there. Yeah, yeah.
If you really want to disguise it as an antenna, it's just a clothesline.
Right. Can you imagine though if you're in a house, homeowners association, and you've convinced them that it's a clothesline, and then you run it up in the air about like that with clothes on it. You run it up there about 30 feet in the air. Say, well, that it dries quicker up there. You know? Yeah.
Yeah, my wife didn't go too well for putting her bras and pants stuff on there, so I guess I didn't do that.
Yeah.
No.
Oh well, it's after 10 o'clock, guys. I think I'm gonna get out of here.
After 11. Hell, you mean 10 o'clock?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna get out, and we're gonna call it a day, and we'll be getting our show together for next week. Already pretty good. Glenn Popel's here. Never know what to expect when Glenn's here.
But one of these days I'll get my Tri-Bander sold. I got it parked in the ground, that big high game Thunderbird 3 element.
Yeah, we got Kurt on here in the chat room. He says where he lives, clotheslines aren't even allowed.
Oh, geez.
Whoa.
Man, yeah. Yeah, good night, Kurt. We'll see you next week.
Yep.
So yeah, if I get my coax in, maybe I'll wind these before the show next week. Show you how they came out.
Yeah.
All right, guys, I'm out of here. See you later. See you next week.
Yep. Looks like everybody's survived Halloween, so.
All right. We'll see you.
Tomorrow's another month.
Oh yeah.
We'll see you next month.
All right, we'll see you.
Yeah. Have a good night.
All right, good night. All right, so that was pretty good. Get off of there. Well, thanks to everybody for tuning in and watching tonight. Appreciate you guys tuning in tonight, and tell your friends and bring a guest to the show next week. Good night, everybody.
So you're saying I can ask this cat any question?
The cat is connected to the computer. You just type in the question, it will read his mind. There the answer comes.
You're the man! I've been looking for this for weeks.